Beloved chosen one, listen carefully. Heaven has stilled the noise around you because this word is for you. You feel it a trembling deep in your spirit, a pull you cannot explain. It's not anxiety, it's awakening. The hour has come. The final test you've been sensing is no longer approaching, it has arrived. You can't outrun it, and you were never meant to. Every storm, every betrayal, every season of silence has been divine rehearsal for this very moment. You've carried more than most, walked through fire without recognition, and endured pain that few could see. But the reason you're still standing is because destiny has not released you. The fire didn't consume you, it purified you. The storm didn't drown you, it baptized you for purpose. This test is not punishment, it's promotion disguised as pressure. The weight you feel isn't meant to crush you, it's the evidence that heaven has placed something priceless inside of you. You were never called to live an ordinary life. You carry a frequency that interrupts darkness. When you walk into a room, atmospheres shift, not because of your name, but because of the one who marked you. Listen, chosen one, you are entering a season of divine proving. Every distraction is being stripped away. God is calling you into focus. There is no more running, no more pretending, no more hiding behind fear. The next move requires complete obedience. Heaven is counting on your surrender, not your perfection. You've seen people come and go, promises appear and fade, but through it all, you're still here. That's not survival, that's purpose. The same God who called you out of darkness is now summoning you into refinement. The shaking around you is not a sign of failure, it's the sound of foundations being rebuilt. You have felt heaven's silence, haven't you? Those nights when your prayers echoed back with no reply, when it felt like God stepped away, but silence was never absence. It was the Master's stillness while the test was being graded. Now the voice returns not to comfort, but to commission. You have been trained in hiddenness so that you can stand in glory without pride. The final test will measure one thing: your obedience when nothing makes sense. When God says go without giving you the map, will you still move? When He says trust without revealing the outcome, will your faith still stand? This is what separates the called from the chosen. Many are called, but few pass the fire. You, however, were never ordinary. The trials you faced were the evidence of your rank in the Spirit. Do not be afraid of the refining. Fire cannot destroy what was born of flame. You are a torchbearer in this generation. And though your path has been narrow, your reward will be wide. Heaven is not testing you to expose your weakness, it's revealing your unbreakable core. And when the weight feels unbearable, remember this ancient truth, a reminder that power doesn't begin in comfort, but in surrender. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 8, we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair. So rise, chosen one, lift your head. Heaven's eyes are on you. The test is your threshold to glory, and your obedience is the key that opens it. You were made for this moment. Do not look back, and do not fear the shaking. It's proof that heaven is building something through you. Every tear you've shed has watered the ground where your miracle will grow. You thought those nights of sorrow were wasted, but heaven was counting each one as seed. Now the harvest approaches. The pain you endured was never in vain. It was proof that purpose was alive inside you. When the world turns its back, heaven turns its face toward you. Rejection was not your punishment, it was your redirection. God removed what couldn't go where you're heading. Let go of what was. The next season will require lighter hands, a purified heart, and a steadfast spirit. You will soon understand why it had to be this way. Every loss, every closed door, every silence, it was divine choreography, aligning your steps with eternal timing. What seemed like chaos was actually design. Heaven has never lost control of your story, and this chapter will prove it. Stand firm, chosen one. The winds may roar, but they are carrying you higher. You are being lifted, not lost. This is not your breaking point, it's your becoming point. Keep your faith steady, your praise loud, and your obedience unshaken. For what's ahead will crown your endurance. If this word ignites something inside you, let it be known. Like this message, share it with another soul who needs to hear heaven's call, and subscribe to remain in this prophetic flow. Then comment the number 111 below as a sign of readiness, declaring, "I will not run, I will rise." The final test begins now, and heaven is watching. You begin to feel the weight of being chosen pressing upon your shoulders, not as a burden, but as a sacred mantle. You once thought that being chosen meant favor, blessings, and open doors. And though those things come, you now understand that the true mark of being chosen is refinement through fire. Heaven's calling is never cheap. It is purchased through endurance, tears, and surrender. Every chosen one is tested in secret before they are revealed in glory. You are no exception. The crushing you feel is not meant to destroy you. It's God extracting purity from your purpose. The anointing you carry was never meant to flow from ease. It flows from the oil pressed out of brokenness. That's why your path has felt heavier than others. You weren't created for the common, you were designed for the divine. There were days you asked, "Why me?" You saw others walking in comfort while you battled invisible wars. You questioned why the fire wouldn't stop, why betrayal came from those you loved, why silence followed your prayers. But now, heaven begins to whisper the answer, because gold is tested by fire, and vessels of glory must be emptied before they overflow. There is a sacred loneliness that follows those chosen by God. It's not punishment, it's separation for consecration. Others may rest while you wrestle. Others may sleep while you weep. Yet every sleepless night has written your name deeper into eternity. You are being shaped for a purpose that eyes haven't seen and hearts haven't imagined. God trusts you with pain because He knows what you will become when you rise from it. The crushing seasons teach you to depend not on applause, but on presence, not on outcomes, but on obedience. That's how heaven knows you are ready. Not when you are strong, but when you stay faithful while weak. You are learning that the cost of being chosen is not measured in what you receive, but in what you release. You've had to let go of relationships that drained your spirit, opportunities that looked good but weren't God, and dreams that were too small for your destiny. Every surrender, though painful, has carved space for divine fullness. Do not despise this refining season. The breaking you feel is holy. It is heaven rearranging your foundation so that you can carry what's coming. To be chosen is to be trusted with divine discomfort. You are walking a narrow road, one paved with sacrifice, discipline, and faith. But every step you take leaves a trail of light for others to follow. In this secret place of testing, God is doing what no human eye can see. He's teaching you endurance that outlasts storms, peace that surpasses understanding, and authority that shakes darkness. You have cried, yes, but those tears were not wasted. They have become the ink with which heaven writes your next chapter. There is beauty in this hidden work. Heaven often hides its greatest vessels before unveiling them. The reason no one sees your transformation yet is because glory takes time to form, just as a seed must die beneath the soil before it sprouts. Your isolation is the womb of your elevation. You are not forgotten, you are being formed. Every chosen one walks this same narrow path. Even Christ himself was tested in the wilderness before stepping into his public mission. If he, the perfect Son, was not spared from the process, why should you be? The process is proof of belonging. The fire you face is the fingerprint of divine trust. So, lift your eyes, though your body feels weary. Your spirit is awakening. You are learning to carry divine responsibility with humility. This is what separates the crowd from the called. You are no longer merely surviving, you are being transformed. You may not see it yet, but heaven is already announcing your name in rooms you have not entered. The crushing season will end, and when it does, you will carry a fragrance of endurance that cannot be imitated. Every scar will tell a story of glory. Every wound will shine as a testimony of grace. Let the world misunderstand you. Let them walk away. You were never meant to be understood by those who haven't seen the vision God placed in you. Their absence will not hinder your ascent. It will make space for divine alignment. Heaven is removing the counterfeit so that the authentic can find you. Remember this truth, spoken from eternity, echoing across generations, according to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. This is the foundation of being chosen. Trust beyond reason. You will not always understand the timing, but you must trust the hand. You will not always see the plan, but you must trust the path. The greater your call, the deeper your dependence must be. So keep walking. Even when the way is unclear, keep believing. Even when your strength feels gone, the fire may burn, but it will not consume you. You are being refined, not rejected, prepared, not punished. Heaven is silent only because it is watching how you respond to the test. The weight of being chosen is heavy, but it's also holy. Carry it with honor, knowing that every step you take is fulfilling prophecy. One day soon, the same people who doubted you will see the glory God has been forming through your pain, and they will know you were chosen for this. The silent war within you has reached its peak. You can feel it, the battle between what your spirit knows and what your flesh fears. It's not a war fought with weapons, but with will. It's the conflict of the chosen, the tension between obedience and comfort, surrender and control, light and shadow. You've carried this battle quietly, but heaven has heard every internal cry. You wake up each morning determined to trust God. Yet by nightfall, doubts creep back in. You tell yourself you're strong. But there are moments when strength feels like a story you tell yourself to survive. Still, beneath the trembling, there is something unbreakable, a whisper that refuses to die. That whisper is faith, and it will not let you go. Chosen one, Understand this truth: the fiercest battles are not fought around you, but within you. The enemy knows he cannot destroy your calling, so he tries to confuse your confidence. He whispers, "You're not enough. You've failed too much. You'll never make it." But these lies are powerless once you recognize them. The war is won the moment you stop agreeing with defeat. This internal struggle is not proof of weakness, it's the evidence of purpose. Only those who carry great light attract great darkness. The resistance you face is not random, it's targeted. Hell attacks what heaven anoints. If your warfare feels intense, it's because your destiny is enormous. You've been chosen to break generational chains, and that assignment provokes opposition. The enemy wants you to believe that peace will come when the war ends. But heaven says peace comes when you trust God in the middle of the battle. You are learning that peace is not the absence of pressure, it's the presence of faith under fire. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from it. Every time you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness, love instead of anger, faith instead of fear, you win. Every moment you silence doubt and speak life, heaven takes notice. You are proving your loyalty to the kingdom with every decision. The war within is not your downfall, it's your refining. Sometimes you wonder why the struggle never stops, why your spirit feels both weary and awake at once. It's because your old self is dying, and your new nature is emerging. The two cannot coexist, and so they wrestle. This is what it means to be transformed. The battle is evidence that change is happening. Do not despise the struggle. It is shaping your discernment, teaching you which voice to trust. You're learning to recognize the difference between God's direction and the enemy's distraction. Each battle leaves you wiser, stronger, and more aligned with heaven's purpose. In your quiet moments, when the noise fades, you can sense it, the still, small voice reminding you, "You are mine." That voice does not shout, it anchors. It reminds you that even when you stumble, grace stands beside you, steadying your steps. There are days when your heart feels divided, when you want to surrender completely but fear what obedience might cost. Yet even that fear cannot stop what God began in you. You were chosen before you knew His name, marked before you understood your mission. The war within you is heaven's way of pulling you toward destiny. You're being purified from the inside out. Your thoughts are being refined, your motives tested, your heart softened. Every time you choose light over darkness, your spirit grows stronger. One day, you'll look back and realize the battle inside you was never meant to destroy you. It was preparing you to carry authority over others who face the same war. Hold to this truth that has guided warriors of faith for generations, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the letter to the Romans, chapter 7, verse 22, "For in my inner being I delight in God's law. Even when your flesh resists, your spirit delights in truth." The war within you is not endless, it is leading to alignment. There will come a day when your heart, mind, and spirit move as one under divine command. That is when you will experience unshakable peace, the kind that no storm can steal. So breathe. Chosen one, you're not failing, you're transforming. The presence of battle does not mean God has left you. In fact, it's the opposite. His hand is upon you so powerfully that darkness has no choice but to push back. That pressure you feel is confirmation of His closeness. Every chosen vessel has a moment like this, a moment of internal reckoning where heaven waits to see what you will choose. This is yours. Stand still, hold your ground, and remember that God is greater than the conflict inside you. Now, take a prophetic step of agreement. In the comments, write, "I choose peace." That simple declaration breaks the cycle of anxiety and fear. It's not just words, it's warfare. When you type it, you are aligning your spirit with heaven's order, declaring that your inner storm will bow to divine authority. Peace is not coming from the outside, it's rising from within you. The temptation to turn back is one of the most dangerous crossroads for the chosen ones. It doesn't always arrive with loud warnings or visible traps. It comes quietly, disguised as logic, comfort, or exhaustion. It whispers, "You've done enough," or "You can rest now. Maybe the calling was just a phase." But deep within, your spirit knows the truth. Retreat is rebellion. And stopping now would mean stepping out of alignment with destiny. Every chosen soul faces this moment, the invitation to return to what's familiar. After the wilderness, after the testing, when the weight of obedience becomes heavy and the rewards seem delayed, the heart begins to crave the predictable. You start to remember Egypt, not as a place of bondage, but as a place of stability. The enemy loves to distort your memory, making the past look safer than the promise. But understand this, the wilderness may be uncomfortable, yet it is still holy ground. The temptation to turn back usually appears right before breakthrough. It's a spiritual law: pressure increases before promotion. The reason the path feels heavier now is that you are close to crossing into the promise. The enemy knows he cannot defeat you head-on, so he tries to exhaust you into surrender. Fatigue becomes his most subtle weapon. But do not give in. This heaviness is not punishment, it's labor. You are giving birth to something eternal. You might feel like nothing is working. You've prayed, obeyed, and waited. Yet heaven seems silent. But silence doesn't mean absence, it means movement. When God is quiet, it's often because he's rearranging things behind the scenes, preparing circumstances to align perfectly with your obedience. The silence tests your trust. Will you keep walking even when you can't hear his voice? The temptation to retreat can come through familiar people. Sometimes it's the voice of someone who loves you, saying, "Maybe this isn't for you." Other times, it's the echo of your own insecurities, repeating old lies. You're not qualified. You missed your chance. You're too broken. But heaven does not select based on perfection, it anoints based on willingness. God knew every flaw, every fear, every hesitation before he called you. And he still said, "Go." There's something sacred about pressing forward when you feel like quitting. Every step in obedience, even when trembling, sends ripples through eternity. Angels move when you move. Your persistence becomes prophecy, declaring that the power of God is greater than human weakness. The world may not see it, but heaven celebrates every moment you choose endurance over escape. Look at your life and recognize how far you've already come. You've walked through storms that would have drowned others. You've survived betrayals that could have hardened your heart. Yet here, you are still tender, still open, still reaching for God. That is evidence of divine strength within you. The same strength that carried you this far will not abandon you now. Sometimes, God allows the temptation to turn back just to reveal what's still hidden in your heart. The old wounds, the unresolved fears, the desire for control. These are all exposed in the testing. But this exposure is not condemnation, it's purification. God shows you what needs surrender so that you can carry the next level of glory without contamination. Do not run from this moment. Sit with it. Let it teach you. Every great purpose requires a moment of decision. This is yours. Heaven is watching, not to judge your hesitation, but to celebrate your perseverance. The moment you choose forward motion, no matter how small the step, divine momentum will meet you. Remember, even Jesus faced the temptation to turn back. In the garden, he prayed, "If it be possible, let this cup pass from me." But his next words sealed the victory. Nevertheless, "Not my will, but yours be done." That's where destiny is decided, in the nevertheless. The battle is won not by those who feel ready, but by those who choose obedience anyway. Hold tightly to this truth written long ago, one that still speaks strength into weary hearts. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 18, verse 21. "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him." This is the moment of decision. Chosen one, the road splits here, backward toward comfort or forward toward calling. The choice is yours. But heaven already believes in your victory. The same God who began this journey with you stands at the end of it, waiting with open arms. Keep walking, even if your steps are slow, even if your faith trembles. Keep moving. Every act of obedience is an act of worship. You cannot fail when your heart is surrendered. The finish line is closer than it feels. And soon you'll see why every battle, every silence, every tear was worth it. You will look back one day and realize that the temptation to turn back was the final gate before your breakthrough. Something begins to stir within you. Chosen one, after the wait, the silence, and the fire, something ancient and alive begins to rise, a remembrance of who you really are. You are not just a survivor of storms, you are the storm's revelation. You are awakening, not from sleep, but from forgetfulness. Heaven is reminding you of your identity, and the flame of divine remembrance begins to burn again in your spirit. You have been walking through shadows, but even shadows require light to exist. That light is within you. You've been bowed under burdens, thinking you were breaking, but you were only bending so your roots could reach deeper. Every battle you thought was meant to destroy you was actually training you for war. Now, the warrior within begins to rise. There is a shift happening in your spirit, a reactivation of courage. You begin to feel the armor of faith fitting around your shoulders again. The lies that used to paralyze you now lose their voice. The same enemy that tried to bury you will one day wish he never touched you. Because buried seeds rise as forests. You were not buried to die, you were planted to multiply. The awakening of the warrior doesn't happen with noise. It begins in the stillness, when your spirit whispers, "Enough. Enough hiding. Enough doubting. Enough postponing what heaven has already declared over your life." The old version of you is dissolving in the fire, and from the ashes, the anointed one is emerging. You were never meant to blend in. You carry a flame that cannot be imitated. When darkness approaches, it recognizes you. Your presence exposes what's hidden, not because you are perfect, but because you are chosen. You were marked to walk into chaos and bring order. to step into pain and release healing, to face giants and remind them who commands the wind. But hear this truth: warriors are not born ready, they are made ready in battle. Every sleepless night, every rejection, every delay has shaped your weaponry. The hands that once trembled in fear are now steady with faith. The voice that once whispered prayers of desperation now speaks declarations of authority. You are not who you were yesterday. The fire has changed you. As you awaken, you begin to see the world differently. The same obstacles that once intimidated you now look like stepping stones. The same silence that once tormented you now feels sacred, like God's breath pausing before a divine announcement. You no longer chase validation because you've realized something powerful. Approval from heaven outweighs applause from earth. You feel heaven's urgency moving through your veins. There's no time to stay silent. There's no space for fear. The generation behind you is waiting for the sound of your obedience. You are not just fighting for yourself, you are fighting for everyone attached to your name. Every soul your courage will inspire. When you rise, they will rise too. Remember this: chosen one, awakening always comes before assignment. The fire within you isn't meant to stay contained. It's meant to spread, to ignite hope in weary hearts and bring warmth to those trapped in spiritual winter. If your spirit burns right now, it's not random. Heaven is fanning the flame because your season of silence has ended. And though you carry the warrior's mantle, never forget that strength and softness can coexist. The greatest warriors are those who know how to kneel. The same knees that bow in prayer will one day stand in victory. Your tears have not been wasted. They've been watering the soil of miracles. Soon, you will see the harvest. Let these ancient words anchor you as your spirit awakens. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind." You were never called to live in fear. You were called to walk in power, clothed in love, and guarded by divine clarity. That is the essence of your awakening. Now, as your spirit rises, consider this: every message, every word of truth that reaches your heart becomes a torch you carry. When you share it, you pass the flame. So if this word has stirred something in you, if you feel the warrior inside you awakening, help the flame spread. Like this message, not for vanity, but as a symbol of unity. Share it so another weary soul might remember their strength. Subscribe so the flow of divine words can continue reaching those who need them most. And if your heart feels led, consider sowing into this mission, a donation not of obligation, but of love. A seed that helps keep the fire burning for others who still walk in darkness. Every small act of faith becomes part of heaven's great tapestry. Together, we build something eternal, not a platform, but an altar of voices awakened by truth. You are part of that altar now. You are one of the living flames. So rise, warrior of light. The battle within has birthed strength without. The world is waiting for the sound of your awakening. You are no longer hiding in the shadows. You are carrying the dawn. The wilderness has a voice, and lately, it's been calling your name. You've been walking through the quiet, through the questions, through the long pauses where heaven seems still. Yet, in that silence, something sacred is forming. The voice in the wilderness isn't a shout, it's a whisper that pierces deeper than thunder. It's God reminding you that his absence is an illusion and his silence is strategy. You've been asking, why can't I hear him? But the truth is, he's been closer in the silence than in the sound. When everything around you grows still, heaven leans in. The silence you fear is actually the space where revelation ripens. Just as seeds grow best underground, your spirit matures most in the unseen. Chosen one. The wilderness is not punishment, it's preparation. God isolates before he elevates. He removes distractions so his voice can become unmistakable. You've walked through noise long enough. Now he's teaching you how to discern whispers. Every delay, every detour, every unanswered prayer is a lesson in trust. The wilderness is the classroom of warriors. There was a time when you mistook divine silence for rejection. You wondered if your prayers bounced off the ceiling. But the truth is, heaven has been holding its breath, watching your faith remain steady despite the silence. You have been passing the test without realizing it. The proof of maturity is not how loud your worship is when God speaks, it's how steady your heart stays when he doesn't. In the wilderness, you begin to hear differently. The distractions of the world fade, and your spiritual senses sharpen. You start to notice divine patterns in ordinary moments, the way the wind seems to carry peace, the way your spirit calms in prayer even when words fail. These are heaven's fingerprints, subtle reminders that he's never left you. The wilderness will strip you of everything that once defined you. You lose people, positions, and plans, but what you gain is priceless clarity, conviction, and communion. When the world's noise fades, the heart of God becomes audible. You no longer chase his voice, you become familiar with his presence. You realize that he's not far away, he's within you, speaking through stillness. You were never meant to stay in the noise. You were called to walk through the wilderness so you could emerge as a voice, not just an echo. This season is shaping your sound. The message that will one day shake nations is being forged in the quiet corners of your surrender. The silence that once scared you will soon become your sanctuary. Sometimes, God allows the wilderness because he knows that if you heard his voice too clearly, too soon, you'd run before you were ready. Silence forces you to listen with your spirit instead of your ears. It transforms you from a seeker of signs into a carrier of presence. You begin to realize that his voice doesn't always sound like thunder, it often feels like peace. Every prophet, every chosen one, has walked through this wilderness of silence. Moses met God in it. Elijah heard the still, small voice within it. Even Jesus withdrew into it before his ministry began. The wilderness is not where destiny dies, it's where destiny is clarified. So, chosen one, stop fighting the quiet. Embrace it. Sit in it. Let it refine you. The same stillness that once made you anxious will soon make you powerful. You are learning to hear what others miss, to discern movement in the unseen, to perceive answers in what seems like delay. And when you feel like the silence will never end, remember this unshakable promise. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy. Chapter 31, verse 6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. You are not abandoned, you are accompanied. Even here, even now, even in this stillness, the presence of God surrounds you like breath. You are walking through what others would call desolation. Yet heaven calls it consecration. The voice you long to hear will soon thunder through your obedience. Hold on. Chosen one, the silence is almost over. The moment of divine instruction is approaching, and your heart will recognize it because you've learned to listen without noise. Soon, the whisper will turn into command, and you will know exactly what to do. When that moment comes, when your heart leaps at his voice, respond instantly. Do not hesitate. Do not question. Do not delay. Heaven rewards those who answer quickly when called. And if this message resonates within you, if your spirit has recognized the whisper of heaven, type the number 333 inches, the comments. That number is not random. It symbolizes divine alignment and heavenly communication. It is your declaration that you are ready to hear, ready to follow, ready to walk in complete obedience. Let that number be a prophetic act, an echo of your heart saying, "Speak, Lord, I am listening." The wilderness has done its work, and the voice is coming. Be still and prepare to hear your next instruction. When heaven feels silent, chosen one, it is easy to believe you've been forgotten. The silence can stretch long, heavy, and hollow, making even your prayers feel weightless. You speak to the sky, but the echo returns empty. It's in this place that the deepest questions rise. Did I miss the sign? Did God change his mind about me? Was I ever really chosen? But listen carefully, the silence is not God's absence. It is his invitation. You are walking through a divine stillness, not a spiritual abandonment. Heaven sometimes hides its sound so that faith can learn its voice. If you only believed when you could feel, you would never develop the power to stand when you cannot. God's silence is not the ending of your story, it's the pause before the next revelation. There is a sacred mystery in these quiet seasons. When you no longer hear God in thunder, you begin to find him in whispers. When miracles seem delayed, you start noticing small mercies that never stopped. The breath in your lungs, the sunrise that still comes, the peace that visits you unexpectedly, all these are the gentle fingerprints of a faithful God. He has not gone anywhere, he's just changing how he speaks. You see, even silence can speak if you know how to listen. It tells you where your attachments still lie. It exposes what your heart has built its trust upon. It reveals whether your faith was anchored in his presence or dependent on his performance. The quiet reveals what you truly worship. When heaven feels silent, it is because God is working beneath the surface. Roots grow underground before fruit appears. The silence is proof that construction is happening in places you cannot yet see. Every unanswered prayer is not denial, it's design. God's not yet is mercy in disguise. Think of a teacher during an exam. When the test begins, the teacher does not speak, not because they have abandoned the students, but because they trust that what was taught will now sustain them. That is how heaven works. God has already spoken enough for you to endure this moment. The silence is his confidence in what he's placed inside you. In this quiet, you're learning something that only stillness can teach: how to walk without constant reassurance. You're discovering that faith is not proven when everything feels clear. It's proven when you choose to believe, even when everything feels empty. Every step you take in silence echoes louder in heaven than 1,000 words of doubt. Even the greatest voices in Scripture faced this silence. David cried, "How long, O Lord, will you hide your face from me?" Job sat in ashes for days. hearing nothing. Jesus himself, on the cross, cried out to a seemingly silent Father. Yet, in every case, silence was not the end, it was the setup for resurrection. You are standing in that same holy pattern. The silence you endure is the soil where resurrection begins. Do not rush to fill the quiet with noise. Sit in it. Let it teach you. The same God who feels distant now will soon break the silence with clarity that will make every delay make sense. Sometimes, silence is God protecting you from instructions you're not ready to handle yet. If He told you the full weight of what's coming, you might retreat in fear. So He speaks less to shape you more. The silence matures you. It prepares you to carry revelation without collapsing under it. As your spirit waits, hold fast to what was already spoken. Go back to the promises that once set your heart ablaze. Read them aloud. Pray them into the quiet. Remind the silence that you still believe. Heaven is not ignoring you, it is listening to your endurance. When your heart aches in the stillness, remember this unchanging word. Scripture says in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." This is the peace that silence cannot steal. It's not fragile. It doesn't depend on circumstance. It is the kind of peace that whispers to the storm, "Be still," even when the storm doesn't stop. You carry that peace now, even if you can't feel it yet. When heaven feels silent, God is watching how you wait. Waiting well is not passive, it's an act of faith. Every time you choose to stay faithful in the quiet, you are sowing seeds that will bloom in the noise. The garden may look barren now, but growth is happening beneath the soil. Soon, chosen one, the silence will break. The voice that once whispered will roar again, and you will understand that the quiet was not a void, it was a womb. Something divine has been forming in the silence. When it finally comes forth, you will see that heaven was never mute, it was composing. So, stay steady. Do not despise the stillness. Let peace anchor you while you wait. The silence is not your enemy, it is your transformation. Everything around you begins to shake. Chosen one, what once felt stable now trembles beneath your feet. The familiar is fading, and the structures you leaned on are crumbling. This is not chaos, it is calibration. Heaven is realigning what your life is built upon. The shaking before the glory is not punishment, it's purification. Before God releases new glory, He removes what cannot carry it. You can sense it in your spirit, the shift, the pull, the unraveling. What used to comfort you no longer fits. People you once depended on now drift away. Paths that once brought progress suddenly close. The shaking exposes every foundation that isn't anchored in truth, though it feels like loss. It is grace disguised as disruption. God is removing what would have destroyed you later. Every chosen vessel must pass through this shaking. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. The Bible is full of stories of divine disturbance: Noah's flood, Moses' wilderness, David's exile, Paul's shipwreck. Each moment of shaking was a doorway to glory. Nothing stable in the natural can contain the supernatural. God must unsettle what is comfortable so He can reveal what is eternal. When everything begins to shake, it can feel as if heaven itself has turned against you. But look closer, The same hands that are shaking your world are also holding it together. The purpose of the shaking is not to destroy, it's to distinguish. It separates what is built on faith from what is built on fear. It distinguishes the authentic from the artificial. You are being sifted so that only what is holy remains. In these seasons, you begin to understand what cannot be shaken. Your job, your relationships, your achievements, these can all change in an instant. But the foundation of your faith, the presence of God within you, and the words spoken over your life, these remain. They are unshakable. Heaven allows temporary instability to remind you where permanence truly lies. Sometimes, God will shake your surroundings to show you how secure your spirit really is. You may lose comfort, but you never lose covering. You may feel pressure, but you are not abandoned. The shaking is simply heaven's way of testing what you've built. Whatever was built on obedience will stand. Whatever was built on pride will fall. This is divine mercy, not judgment. You might find yourself asking, why now? After all this progress, because the closer you come to destiny, the more necessary refinement becomes. The old structures cannot support the weight of new glory. Before God promotes, He purges. The shaking removes the excess, the unnecessary, the unholy attachments that could corrupt your calling. The shaking isn't the end, it's the unveiling. You can see it now, the walls around you cracking. The doors that once stayed open, now sealed. Yet, even in this, there's rhythm. The cracks are letting light through. The closed doors are redirecting your steps. What looks like loss is actually guidance. Heaven never subtracts without the intention to multiply. This shaking also reveals the hidden strength inside you. You once thought you needed certain people to survive, but now you're discovering that God was your source all along. You're realizing that peace doesn't come from predictability, but from presence. You've learned that even when the earth shakes beneath your feet, the spirit inside you cannot be moved. Every storm, every trembling, every disruption is leading to a greater unveiling. You are being prepared for glory beyond imagination. When the shaking ends, you will not just stand, you will shine. Everything that remains after this season will be pure, rooted, and ready for divine increase. Let this truth anchor you as the ground trembles. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 62, verse 2, He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken. Those words were not written in comfort, they were written in conflict. David spoke them while surrounded by instability, yet his heart stayed firm. That same spirit of unshakable confidence is rising in you now. The shaking may rattle your surroundings, but it cannot touch your foundation. Look at the fragments around your feet, the pieces of what used to be. Do not mourn them. They were never meant to carry your future. God is building something new, something unbreakable, on the ruins of what once was. This shaking is heaven's demolition before reconstruction. The noise is temporary, the glory will be eternal. You will look back on this season and see that it was necessary. Without the shaking, you would have settled. Without the breaking, you would have built your life on what was fragile. The shaking is mercy because it forces you to cling to what cannot fall, God Himself. So stand tall, even as everything quakes. Lift your hands, even as the dust rises. Declare with boldness that your foundation is Christ, and no storm, no betrayal, No uncertainty can uproot what he has planted within you. The shaking before the glory is the sound of heaven preparing you for revelation. Do not fear it, welcome it. There comes a point. Chosen one. When faith is no longer a theory, it becomes the breath you take to survive. You've reached the breaking point of faith. That sacred edge where logic ends and trust begins. This is where your heart trembles between surrender and collapse. You've done everything you can. You've prayed, obeyed, and waited. Yet, heaven seems still, and your strength feels nearly gone. But listen, the breaking point is not the end. It is the beginning of revelation. God allows your faith to stretch until it feels unbearable because He is expanding your capacity to carry what's coming. The pressure is proof of promotion. The breaking point is the birthplace of the miraculous. It feels like you're being torn in two between hope and despair, between belief and exhaustion. But in that tension, something divine is being born. Just as a seed must split before it can sprout, your faith must break open before it bears fruit. You are not falling apart. You are unfolding. Heaven does not panic when you tremble. Your weakness does not offend God, it draws Him closer. He is not looking for perfect faith. He's looking for persevering faith. The kind that whispers, "I still believe," even when everything around you screams, "Give up." That whisper is your weapon. It pierces through darkness like light breaking through a storm. Many stop here, at the breaking point. They confuse pressure for punishment, not realizing it's the threshold of transformation. This is where destiny is decided not in victory, but in endurance. When you keep standing, even when everything inside you wants to collapse, heaven takes note. Angels record it. Your endurance becomes worship. Sometimes you may think, "My faith is too weak to survive this." But what you call weakness, heaven calls purity. Faith isn't proven in abundance, it's proven in emptiness. It's easy to trust when you're surrounded by miracles. It's holy to trust when nothing makes sense. There's a mystery in breaking. When glass shatters, it reflects light in more directions than before. Likewise, when your faith breaks open, it refracts God's glory in ways it never could while whole. Every crack becomes a window for His light to shine through. The breaking doesn't diminish you, it reveals you. Your spirit whispers what your mind cannot understand, that pain and purpose are entwined. What hurts you now will one day heal others through you. This breaking point is not your burial, it's your birth. Heaven is watching you push through this invisible labor, knowing that new strength is being born in the struggle. Think of Jacob wrestling with the angel through the night. He was wounded, yes, but he left the battle with a new name. That's what happens here. At your breaking point, you gain identity. God breaks what He intends to rename. In your darkest moments, when tears blur your vision, hold to this unshakable promise. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 19, verse 26, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Those words are the heartbeat of endurance. They remind you that your limits are not your end, they are God's invitation to take over. The breaking point is where you finally release control, where you stop trying to fix what only faith can hold. Every chosen one reaches this holy breaking. Even Abraham, holding the knife above his promise, felt this moment. Even Esther, walking toward a king who could kill her, knew this tension. The ones who change the world are not the ones who never break. They are the ones who break and still believe. So let yourself feel the weight of it. But do not surrender to despair. The breaking is temporary. The glory that follows is eternal. What feels unbearable today will become tomorrow's testimony. Your scars will one day preach louder than your words. In this moment, heaven is near. You may not feel it, but your breaking has drawn divine attention. Angels are standing by, not to rescue you prematurely, but to witness your victory. They know that when you rise from this, you will carry authority forged in fire. Now, take a breath. This is not the end of your story, it's the pivot. Your faith is not dying, it's deepening. You are crossing from belief into knowing. You are being stretched. Yes, but not beyond breaking. God has measured your endurance and will not let the pressure exceed your purpose. When the pain feels too heavy, whisper this truth to yourself: I am not breaking down, I am breaking through. You may not see the dawn yet, but the night is almost over. And when morning comes, you will stand taller, not because the storm stopped, but because you learned to breathe in the rain. Now, let your faith answer back to heaven. Type "I still believe." Write it not for me, but for you, for your future self, who will one day look back and realize that this was the moment you refused to give up. When you declare it, you are telling the universe that your faith will not fracture, your hope will not expire, and your purpose will not die in the waiting. Heaven hears you. The breaking point is behind you. The breakthrough is already moving toward you. You are standing at the crossroads of obedience. Chosen one, it is a sacred intersection where heaven waits and your will trembles. You can almost feel the pull of two paths before you, one that feels safe, predictable, familiar, and another that feels uncertain, costly, but divinely alive. This is the moment every chosen soul must face, the moment where obedience demands everything. Obedience is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move through fear. It is the bridge between what God has promised and what you will see fulfilled. You can sense heaven holding its breath, watching to see if you will step forward even when you cannot see the ground. That is where miracles are born, not on the mountaintop of clarity, but in the valley of decision. The crossroads of obedience often looks ordinary. It's rarely surrounded by trumpets or visible signs. Sometimes it looks like forgiving the one who wounded you most. Sometimes it looks like leaving behind a place that once felt like home. Sometimes it means stepping into a calling that costs your comfort but births your crown. Obedience doesn't always make sense, but it always makes history. You remember the stories of old. Abraham left everything familiar for a land he couldn't name. Noah built a ship before a single drop of rain. Mary said yes to an assignment that made her misunderstood. Each of them reached this same crossroad. Each of them had to choose between what was easy and what was eternal. And because they obeyed, generations were changed. Now it's your turn. You stand where they once stood, on the edge of the unknown, hearing the whisper that says, "Trust me." You don't need the full map, only the next step. Faith doesn't demand visibility, it demands willingness. Your yes will open doors no man can shut. But first, it must be given without condition. The hardest part of obedience is not the doing, it's the dying. Something in you has to die every time you choose God's will over your own. Pride dies. Control dies. The need to be understood dies. But in that death, Resurrection begins. What rises from obedience is not loss, it's life, purer and more powerful than before. Imagine a seed in the soil. It cannot see the sun, yet it obeys the instinct to grow. It pushes upward through darkness, through weight, through pressure. It obeys without proof that light exists. And then, one day, it breaks through the surface and sees the very sun it trusted by faith. That is what your obedience is doing. It's pushing through unseen soil toward divine sunlight. Remember this truth written long ago, still echoing with authority. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 5. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. You are that treasure. Your obedience is your proof of belonging. It tells heaven you are trustworthy with more. It tells darkness that you cannot be bought. It tells the world that your allegiance is not to convenience, but to covenant. And as you take these steps of faith, know that you are not walking alone. Every word shared here, every message you receive, is a seed planted in your spirit. When you nurture it, when you engage, share, and pass it forward, you become part of a living chain of obedience that reaches across nations. So, if this message resonates in the depths of your heart, if you feel heaven stirring inside you, let your actions reflect your yes. Like this message, not for numbers, but as a symbolic act, an acknowledgement that your spirit has heard and agreed. Share it so that another soul standing at their own crossroads might find direction through your obedience. Subscribe so you can stay connected to the stream of truth that keeps your faith nourished. And if your heart feels led, consider sowing into this mission. A donation is not just support, it's partnership. Every offering, no matter how small, becomes a bridge for another weary heart to encounter divine hope. It is a candle placed in another's darkness, a ripple that carries light farther than you could imagine. The crossroads of obedience is not a lonely place. It's where destinies converge. Every act of faith here becomes part of a greater movement of light. Together, we build altars, not with stone, but with surrender. Take courage, chosen one. Step forward. The road may narrow, but it leads to glory. Heaven does not need perfection, it needs your yes. And when you give it, all creation shifts in your favor. The wind of purpose will catch your steps, and the path will open like the Red Sea before you. You are not losing when you obey, you are aligning. And what waits on the other side of obedience will make every sacrifice worth it. There comes a season, chosen one, when heaven pulls back the curtain, the hidden becomes visible, the concealed is uncovered, and everything false begins to fall away. This is the hour of divine exposure, not for shame, but for sanctification. God is revealing what has been quietly poisoning your path, what has been disguising itself as light while draining your strength in secret. The exposure is not cruelty, it is mercy dressed as clarity. You begin to see people differently. Words that once sounded sincere now echo hollow. Smiles that once comforted now carry a strange weight. Don't be alarmed, your discernment is not malfunctioning, it's maturing. Heaven sharpens your vision before it expands your assignment. God cannot allow you to carry hidden alliances that contradict your calling. So he exposes what cannot go with you. Exposure hurts because it disrupts illusion. You once believed certain relationships were divine, certain opportunities were blessings, certain dreams were holy. But as light increases, deception loses its place to hide. You start recognizing manipulation wrapped in kindness, self-interest disguised as love, and distractions wearing the costume of purpose. God is stripping away every counterfeit connection because authenticity cannot grow in the shadow of pretense. When divine exposure comes, the heart aches. You feel betrayed, blindsided, or even foolish for not seeing it sooner. But heaven is not mocking you, it's maturing you. Every hidden thing revealed is a step toward freedom. What was concealed was controlling you. Once you see it for what it is, it loses power. Revelation always precedes restoration. Sometimes, exposure doesn't involve other people, it involves you. God turns the light inward, showing motives, wounds, and fears you didn't know you carried. It can be uncomfortable to see your own reflection under holy fire. But that burning light isn't condemnation, it's cleansing. He exposes to heal, not to humiliate. The same light that reveals impurities also refines gold. There's a pattern to divine exposure before every elevation comes, revelation, before every new level of glory. Heaven clears the atmosphere. Think of the way a storm rumbles before the air grows clean. The lightning looks violent, but afterward, the sky glows clearer. That is what this season is: heavenly lightning breaking through your clouds. The flash may shock you, but its purpose is purification. You may notice people leaving abruptly, doors closing suddenly, or opportunities dissolving overnight. Don't chase what God removes. Sometimes the greatest protection comes in the form of rejection. When heaven shuts something down, it's because what's ahead requires clean alignment. What feels like loss now will soon reveal itself as deliverance. Exposure is heaven's pruning, and pruning always precedes growth. The gardener does not cut to destroy, he cuts to multiply. Every branch trimmed back is an act of faith in your future fruit. God wouldn't bother pruning you if he didn't plan for you to bear more. The pain you feel is simply evidence of his investment. Hold on to this ancient truth, one that speaks as strongly today as when it was first written. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." That verse reminds you that exposure and revelation are timed events. God reveals things not when you want, but when you are ready. Every unveiling is perfectly aligned with your maturity. If you had seen it earlier, you might have clung to what should have been released. But now, with wiser eyes, you can let go without regret. The light of truth may feel harsh at first, but soon you will breathe easier. The air around you will clear. The burdens you didn't even realize you were carrying will fall off. With each false thing removed, your spirit becomes lighter, your prayers sharper, your steps more certain. You will know who you are and who is truly with you. This is heaven's kindness to reveal before you rise, to cleanse before you carry glory. You are being repositioned for something greater, something purer. The exposure is not your downfall, it's your preparation for visibility. When your name begins to echo across realms, heaven wants your foundation to be free of cracks. So, do not despise this light. Welcome it, even when it stings. Every truth uncovered is a seed of freedom. Every mask removed is a breath of authenticity. You are being stripped of shadows so you can stand transparent before God, radiant and unashamed. Soon, you'll thank Him for every revelation you once feared. You'll see that every unveiling was a doorway, every heartbreak a purification, every truth an act of divine mercy. The people who remain after the exposure will be the ones assigned to your next chapter, real, refined, and chosen. You are stepping into the kind of purity that attracts presence. When heaven looks at you now, it sees through you clear, surrendered, and ready. The exposure has done its work. You are lighter, wiser, and closer to the core of who you truly are. The hidden has been brought into light, and the light is setting you free. The heat is rising now. Chosen one, you can feel it in every breath you take. The refining fire has been kindled around you. It does not come to destroy, but to define. You are walking through flames that purify everything that is not meant to stay. The refining fire does not ask permission. It consumes what cannot withstand truth. Yet, as terrifying as it feels, it is holy. Heaven's fire burns only to reveal gold. The fire is not a stranger to those who are chosen. Every prophet, every apostle, every vessel of glory has walked through this furnace of transformation. It's the sacred space where pride melts, motives are purified, and faith becomes unshakable. This is not the fire of wrath, it is the fire of preparation. You are being readied for something weightier than before, something that demands purity over comfort. You may be tempted to ask, why must it hurt so much? Because impurities do not leave quietly. They resist. They scream. They cling. But God is relentless in His mercy. He knows the treasures hidden within you, and He will not allow them to stay buried under fear, shame, or self-doubt. The fire touches the deepest parts of you not to wound, but to awaken. Think of gold in the hands of a refiner. It is heated until the impurities rise to the surface. The process looks violent, but it is precision. Only when the refiner sees his reflection in the gold does he know the work is finished. That is exactly what heaven is doing within you, turning up the heat until the image of God shines unmistakably through your spirit. You've been wondering why certain things that once felt safe are now uncomfortable. It's because the fire has shifted the temperature of your destiny. The same environment that once sustained you can no longer contain you. Your spirit is expanding, your purpose is evolving, and the fire is heaven's way of stretching your soul to fit the promise you carry. The refining fire exposes what you thought you had healed from. Old wounds resurface. Old fears whisper again. But don't mistake that for regression, it's revelation. God is bringing them up so they can finally be burned away. Healing often begins with heat. What rises to the surface in this season is not there to shame you, it's there to free you. The world may see smoke, but heaven sees sanctification. What is burning away is not your destiny, but your dependency on what could never sustain it. You are losing weight that your spirit was never meant to carry. Every false identity, every limiting belief, every self-made defense is turning to ash, making room for divine essence to emerge. In the midst of the flames, it's easy to feel alone. But look closer. You're not by yourself in the fire. The fourth presence walks beside you, the same presence that stood with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when the furnace was 7 times hotter. Their ropes burned, but their bodies did not. The fire that should have destroyed them instead revealed who walked with them. That is what's happening now. The fire is revealing who's been with you all along. Hold tightly to this eternal word that steadies the heart when flames rise high. The ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, "When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." That is your promise, not poetry. It is divine insurance proof that the fire you face has boundaries. It can touch what's false, but it cannot harm what's true. It will consume what's temporary, but it cannot scorch what's eternal. You are walking through fire, but you are not walking toward ruin. You are walking toward revelation. When the heat feels unbearable, remind yourself, gold never fears fire. The hotter it burns, the purer it becomes. You are becoming something that reflects heaven's brilliance. The world will soon see the shine, but only you and God will know the story of the flames. So, stand still in the glow of this holy furnace. Don't rush the process. Let it finish its work. Every ember has purpose. Every crackling sound sings of coming beauty. The refining fire is your sculptor, shaping you into a vessel fit for divine glory. And when you feel the warmth closing in, whisper a declaration not of fear, but of faith. Type 888 inches, the comments below. That number is a symbol of new beginnings, of cycles completed and creation renewed. It's your way of saying, I'm not running from the fire, I'm rising through it. Let it be your mark of agreement that what God started in the heat, He will finish in glory. When the fire fades, you will not smell like smoke. You will shine like gold. The world will see resilience, but heaven will see reflection. You were not consumed, you were completed. There comes a moment, chosen one, when the fog begins to lift, and everything you've endured starts to make sense. You begin to see that every loss, every tear, every trial was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal the strength that had been sleeping inside you all along. This is the revelation of power. You realize that what you thought was punishment was actually preparation, and what you called delay was divine design. For so long, you looked at the broken pieces of your story and wondered how they could ever fit together again. But now, heaven starts showing you the pattern in the fragments. You see that the pain that once haunted you has become the very proof of your endurance. Every disappointment was a disguised lesson. Every setback a setup. The revelation of power doesn't come in lightning or thunder. It comes quietly, like the sunrise after a long night. The power you now carry didn't come cheaply. It was forged in silence, hammered in loneliness, and tempered in tears. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, steady and unshakable. This is the strength that walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere, not because it shouts, but because it radiates authenticity. The revelation of power is not about control, it's about clarity. It's the realization that God's power flows best through surrendered hands. You've been learning this truth slowly. True authority isn't taken, it's entrusted. It comes when heaven sees that you can be trusted with both storms and silence. Many crave the crown, but reject the crushing that forms it. You, however, have endured the process. You have walked through fire and come out refined, not resentful. And because of that, heaven is now revealing what has been growing in you all along. Power is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like peace that refuses to break. Sometimes it looks like forgiveness that feels impossible. Sometimes it's simply the ability to keep showing up, to keep believing, to keep loving even when you have every reason to stop. That is power to remain light in the presence of darkness, to carry gentleness when surrounded by chaos. The revelation of power is the unveiling of identity. You are not who you were before the fire. The timid soul who once questioned everything has become a vessel of divine certainty. The voice that once whispered prayers of desperation now speaks words that carry weight in the spirit. You don't just know about God's power, you've lived it, survived it, embodied it. There is a maturity in you now that wasn't there before. You no longer react to storms with panic, because you've learned that storms cannot drown what walks with divine authority. You've begun to understand that every shaking only exposes your stability. You are not just surviving anymore, you are reigning. Quietly, humbly, gloriously. Let this truth from Scripture speak into the core of your spirit. We find in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Those words are no longer theory to you, they are testimony. You have lived them. You have walked through nights that tried to silence you, through grief that tried to hollow you, through valleys that tried to bury you. Yet, here you stand, stronger not in your own might, but in His. The revelation of power is not arrogance, it's awareness. It's the knowing that your survival was not accidental, that your scars have become your sermon, and that your endurance has become your evidence. The things that once broke you are now your credentials. Heaven looks at you and sees proof that grace works. You are entering a new era of authority. No longer will you doubt the weight of your words. You will speak and see things shift. You will pray and see heaven move. You will walk and sense darkness retreat. Because the revelation of power does not just change what you can do, it changes who you are. This is not the end of your testing, it is the beginning of your reigning. You've graduated from survival to sovereignty, not earthly sovereignty, but spiritual dominion, the kind that commands peace in storms and love in hatred. You have become a walking manifestation of divine resilience. The world will soon see what heaven already knows, that you were never just chosen to endure, you were chosen to empower. Every trial has been training, every fire has been forging, and now, as the revelation unfolds, you'll realize that nothing was wasted. Stand tall, chosen one. Your scars shine brighter than the gold you carry. You have discovered what few ever do, that true power is not in conquering others, but in conquering yourself. That's the secret heaven has been teaching you all along. You have become the vessel through which divine strength flows freely, unshakable and unstoppable. The revelation is complete. You are the proof of His power. There is a sacred solitude that follows the revelation of power. It is not the loneliness of abandonment, but the stillness of alignment. You begin to realize that standing alone with God is not isolation, it is intimacy. After the noise of testing and the roar of battle, you find yourself surrounded by quiet again. But this time, the silence doesn't sting. It feels holy. It feels safe. You look around and notice that many who once walked beside you are gone. Some drifted away gently, Others tore themselves out of your story. It hurt. Yes, but as you stand in this silence, you begin to understand. They were part of your journey, not your destination. The ones who left made space for the one who stays. You were never meant to depend on the crowd. You were meant to lean fully into the presence of God. Standing alone with God is the moment when dependency shifts. You stop reaching for approval and start reaching for assignment. You stop seeking affirmation and start seeking alignment. You no longer crave to be seen, you crave to be sent. The applause of people fades, but the whisper of God becomes louder, and that whisper is enough. This solitude teaches you something that noise never could: the beauty of sufficiency. You discover that His presence is not an accessory to your life, it is your life. What once felt like loss now feels like luxury. Because being alone with God is where you see Him most clearly. The distractions are gone, and what remains is revelation. You start to notice divine patterns. The prophets stood alone before they spoke for nations. Moses climbed the mountain alone before he carried the tablets. Elijah hid by the brook before he called down fire. Even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray. Solitude is not punishment for the chosen, it is preparation for divine partnership. Heaven hides you to refine you. And in this hiddenness, something beautiful unfolds. You start hearing God in ways you never did before. His voice no longer sounds distant, it feels internal, intertwined with your heartbeat. You begin to see that intimacy with Him isn't found in noise, but in nearness. You realize that the greatest conversations with heaven don't always use words, they use stillness, surrender, and quiet trust. There is a deep paradox to this sacred solitude. It breaks you before it builds you. It strips away illusion, yet fills you with truth. You lose what was familiar, yet gain what is eternal. It feels like standing on a mountain alone, wind against your face, yet knowing that unseen armies surround you. This aloneness is holy ground. When you are alone with God, He reveals things He couldn't show you in crowds. Crowds cloud clarity, but solitude opens your eyes to details. Divine hands have been crafting behind the scenes. In this silence, He rewrites the scripts you've believed about yourself. He reminds you that you were never forgotten, never disqualified, never too late. You learn to walk differently here. There's a calmness that follows you now, a stability that doesn't depend on circumstances. Your steps are quieter, but more deliberate. You no longer rush ahead, you move with rhythm, in sync with divine timing. You've learned that not every door is meant to open, and not every sound is meant to be answered. Let this eternal truth anchor your solitude. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 29, verse 13. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. This is the secret of the still place. You don't find God by accident, you find Him by pursuit. Solitude is not emptiness, it's evidence of your searching heart. It's the meeting ground where human hunger touches divine presence. And when you seek Him fully, you never leave the same. As you stand alone with God, you realize that what felt like a wilderness was actually a womb. The silence was never separation, it was preparation. Heaven hid you to strengthen your spine, to sharpen your vision, to purify your heart. The waiting wasn't wasted, it was working. And now, this solitude no longer frightens you. It feels like friendship. The presence of God has become home to you. And you know that even when no one else understands, He does. You've stopped needing validation from people because you have confirmation from heaven. Standing alone with God has taught you what community never could. That divine intimacy sustains you more deeply than human affirmation ever could. You are not alone. You are accompanied by eternity. You walk with the one who shaped galaxies and yet calls you by name. This is the holy paradox of being chosen. The closer you walk with God, the smaller your circle becomes, yet the smaller it gets, the stronger you grow. In solitude, your roots sink deeper. In stillness, your spirit stretches wider. And in this sacred quiet, you realize you were never truly alone. You were simply being drawn closer to the one who never leaves. The storm is no longer something you fear. Chosen one. It has become the crown upon your head, the sign of your transformation. You've weathered tempests that should have torn you apart. Yet you stand taller now, not because the winds have stopped, but because you've learned how to lean with grace. You are crowned in the storm, and that crown was not made of gold, but of endurance. You begin to see storms differently. Once they were threats, now they are invitations. They are the hands of heaven sculpting your resilience. Every thunderclap that once frightened you now feels like a drumbeat announcing your strength. Every drop of rain that once represented sorrow now cleanses the dust of old seasons from your spirit. The storm is no longer your enemy, it is your coronation. There is something profoundly sacred about standing calm while the world shakes. It's as if heaven has given you new lungs to breathe peace while others gasp for certainty. You've learned that real strength is not found in escaping storms, but in walking through them with stillness inside. You've discovered that your crown doesn't shine despite the chaos, it shines because of it. Look around you. The wind may still howl, but you are not the same person who entered the tempest. You are wiser now, lighter, sharper. What once hurt you now humbles you. What once confused you now clarifies you. The very storm that tried to drown you has baptized you into your destiny. This crown you wear, it's invisible to the world, but unmistakable to heaven. It's forged from tears, molded by faith, and polished by time. It's the mark of those who refuse to quit. And as you stand in this storm, you begin to realize something deeper. You were never meant to fight the weather, you were meant to command it. The peace within you has become stronger than the chaos around you. Every drop of pain that fell upon you has now turned to rain that nourishes others. You've become an oasis in someone else's desert, a lighthouse for those still searching for shore. That is the beauty of being crowned in the storm. You no longer need the sun to shine to know where the light is. You've become it. There's a verse that wraps this revelation in divine truth. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 24. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. You are running that race still, but now. You run not from fear, but toward fulfillment. You've learned that the crown is not given at the end of the storm, but within it. Every act of endurance, every whisper of faith, every choice to love in the middle of chaos places another jewel upon your crown. And now, as you stand tall amid the winds, you can feel heaven's gaze upon you, approving, proud, radiant. The angels are not applauding your perfection, they are celebrating your perseverance. You have become living proof that storms cannot erase divine purpose. If these words reach the quiet places in your heart, if they touch something that feels like hope, or healing, or home, then let this moment become more than listening. Let it become a ripple of light. Like this message, not as a routine, but as a symbol, a small flame acknowledging that you, too, have been crowned in storms. Share it with someone who still trembles in the thunder. Someone who needs to know that survival is not shame, but sovereignty. Subscribe so you can keep walking this journey of light, where each message becomes another step toward clarity. And if you feel moved, consider sowing into this space a donation not as payment, but as partnership. Every gift keeps this fire burning, keeps these words reaching hearts that need them most. Think of it as watering a living garden, helping the rain of revelation reach soil that's waiting to bloom. Together, we build something lasting, something eternal, a sanctuary of truth in a noisy world. When you comment below, let your words be more than text, let them be testimony. Write your reflections, your gratitude, your own story of standing through the storm. You never know who might be reading, who might draw strength from your words and decide to keep going. This is how chosen ones find one another, through courage shared in the open. The storm has not passed, but you are no longer afraid of it. You wear its wind like a robe and its lightning like a crown. The thunder no longer threatens you, it harmonizes with your heartbeat. You are proof that peace can exist inside chaos, that light can stand unshaken in rain. So, lift your head, crowned one. Let the storm see what it created. You have become the calm in its center, the glory in its wake. The world will not forget this. Heaven never will. The air feels heavy with destiny now. Chosen one, you can sense it, the final test drawing near. It's not the same as the trials you've faced before. Those were lessons, rehearsals, and refinements. But this is the proving ground of purpose. Every step you've taken, every tear, every prayer whispered in silence has led you to this threshold. The final test does not come to harm you. It comes to reveal what has been built within you. This test won't arrive with warning. It comes quietly, woven into the moments of ordinary life through choices, temptations, delays, and opportunities that seem harmless on the surface. Yet within them, heaven hides the question, will you obey even when it costs you? The final test is not about knowledge, it's about alignment. It measures not what you've learned, but what you've become. The hardest part is that the test often looks like silence. God does not always announce the moment when faith is being measured. He simply watches. He watches your reactions, your words, your posture. He watches if you still trust him when the path bends, if you still choose peace when chaos calls your name. He watches not to condemn, but to confirm that you are ready for what's next. In this final test, your discernment will be sharpened. Every distraction will seem louder, every temptation more appealing, every shortcut more reasonable. The enemy always sends counterfeits when the real promise is near. This is why discernment must rise higher than desire. Your emotions cannot lead you now, your spirit must. It is here, at this stage, that the weight of obedience feels heavier than ever. You will be asked to walk by faith, not sight to trust without visible assurance. There will be moments when you'll wonder if heaven is silent because you've done something wrong. But the truth is simpler and far more sacred. Heaven is silent because it is watching your maturity unfold. Tests are not given to those who are unprepared. They are given to those ready to be promoted. You've walked through fire. You've wrestled with shadows. You've stood alone on mountains of decision. Now all of heaven watches as you step into this final measure. This is where faith stops being an idea and becomes instinct. This is where obedience ceases to be effort and becomes your nature. The final test is not about endurance anymore, it's about essence. It will challenge what you love most. It will touch the very thing you thought you could never surrender. Not because God delights in taking, but because He desires to prove that nothing owns you but Him. The test is never about loss, it's about loyalty. Heaven wants to know if your heart beats for the giver more than the gift. You may feel like you're being torn between two worlds, the pull of what you desire and the call of what you were born to do. But the truth is, only one of them leads to freedom. The other will chain you to comfort. The final test separates the called from the commissioned, the willing from the surrendered. Hold this word close as the refining intensifies. Heaven speaks clearly through the writings in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. That is your promise. The test is not a threat, it's a doorway. The trial is not your end, it's your elevation. When you persevere, you prove to heaven and hell alike that your love for God is genuine. This is what every battle has prepared you for. As you walk through it, remember that no test lasts forever. Every night has a dawn, every fire has an end, and every wilderness has an exit. You are not trapped, you are being transformed. What feels like pressure is simply heaven finishing what it started. Do not be afraid of this moment. The same God who carried you through the beginning will sustain you until the final breath of this battle. You do not fight for victory, you fight from it. The outcome was decided long ago when grace marked you as chosen. When this test ends, you will not be the same. You will walk with quiet authority, carrying the scent of perseverance and the light of completion. The world will not understand the weight you've carried, but heaven will celebrate the endurance you've proven. You are standing in the last fire before fulfillment. The test does not define your worth, it reveals it. And when it's done, the crown will fit perfectly, because it was molded in the pressure you're walking through now. Heaven leans close now. Chosen one. The test has passed. The fire has cooled, and the silence has lifted. You have crossed through the narrow gate where many turned back. The weight you carried has become the proof of your endurance, the crown of your obedience, and the fragrance of your faith. God is counting on you, and now the time has come to fulfill the reason you were chosen. You stand in the aftermath of refinement. Everything that could be shaken has been shaken. What remains is unbreakable. What stands now is truth pure, unadorned, holy. You have discovered that the strength of the chosen is not in their shouting, but in their staying. It was never about how loudly you believed, but how deeply you trusted. Heaven does not measure noise, it measures faithfulness. Now, you can feel heaven's breath upon your shoulders, the divine acknowledgement that the journey has been worth every tear. You realize that obedience was never a one-time act, it was a lifetime rhythm. Through every moment of confusion, through every night you questioned your worth, God was watching not for perfection, but for perseverance. The final test did not come to expose weakness, it came to reveal who you truly are. And now, You know, you are not just a believer, you are a bearer. You carry light that darkness cannot comprehend. You carry peace that cannot be stolen. You carry authority that does not need recognition to exist. What you have walked through has made you a living testimony of divine strength. Look around at your life, the ashes, the beauty, the silence that now hums with peace. Everything has changed. But so have you. The people who once doubted your calling will not recognize the calm in your eyes. The same voice that trembled in fear now speaks with clarity. The same heart that once broke under pressure now beats with purpose. You have become what you once prayed to be. There is a quiet glory that surrounds those who pass through divine fire. It's not loud or showy. It's still and steadfast. You've joined the lineage of those who endured: Abraham, who trusted when he couldn't see; Esther, who stood when it wasn't safe; Daniel, who prayed when silence was demanded. Their legacy now flows through you. You are part of the unbroken chain of those who chose God, even when it cost everything. Heaven has not just refined you, it has entrusted you. You are no longer in waiting, you are in witness. Your very existence testifies to the faithfulness of God. Where others see scars, heaven sees signatures, evidence that grace was at work. You've been branded by mercy and anointed by endurance. And now, as the dust settles and light pierces through what remains, you can hear it, the quiet voice that has always been there, saying, "Well done," not for the victories you won, but for the faith you held, not for the times you succeeded, but for the moments you refused to let go. Heaven counts faithfulness as triumph, and by that measure, you have conquered. Hold close to this eternal reminder, one that crowns the story of the chosen. It is written in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." Those words are no longer history to you, they are heritage. You have fought your fight, endured your wilderness, faced your Gethsemane. You have learned what it means to keep faith when the world offers no reason to. And because of that, heaven now counts you among those who stood the test and did not turn away. The angels that once watched your struggle now watch your rise. The same heavens that were silent during your testing now resound with your triumph. You have become the fulfillment of a divine promise, the living proof that destiny cannot be delayed, that purpose cannot be extinguished, and that faith, once refined, becomes unbreakable. You stand not as one merely surviving, but as one commissioned. The trials were the forge, the tears were the oil, the silence was the shaping. Everything has been leading to this divine partnership. God is no longer just leading you, He is working through you. You've become His vessel, fluid, faithful, and fearless. The world around you may never understand the cost of your obedience, but heaven does. You are not the same person who began this journey. You are a living altar, a breathing testament, a keeper of sacred fire. You have seen God not just in blessings, but in breaking, and that is where true intimacy is born. Now the path stretches before you wide, radiant, filled with purpose. You do not walk alone. Every step you take carries the weight of heaven's confidence. God is counting on you, not as a servant trembling in fear, but as a son, a daughter, a partner in divine will. The test is complete. The proving is over. The promise remains. Walk forward, chosen one, clothed in quiet majesty. The fire behind you will light the way for others. The storm you survived will become their shelter. And as you move into what's next, remember, the journey was never about reaching the end. It was about becoming eternal in spirit. And now, chosen one, the story closes, but your journey does not. You have walked through fire, silence, storm, and revelation. You have wrestled with purpose until purpose finally looked back through your own reflection. Heaven smiles as you stand, steady and luminous, a vessel of endurance crowned in quiet glory. This is your moment not of ending, but of awakening. As you breathe in the stillness, remember how far you've come. Every word written here was not mere storytelling, it was prophecy spoken into your soul. You are not the same as when you began. Something has shifted. The trembling has turned to peace, and the pain has transformed into purpose. You are living proof that destiny delayed is not destiny denied. So before you step away, take a moment. Let these words echo in your heart. If this message reached something deep within you, if it made your spirit rise, or your eyes well with recognition, don't keep it hidden. Let the light you've received become light you pass forward. Like this message, not as a routine gesture, but as a quiet act of agreement, a way of saying, I have heard and I am ready. Share it with those who walk through their own storms, those who need to remember that God is still writing their chapters. Subscribe, not for numbers, but to stay connected to the rhythm of these divine words, to walk beside a community of awakened hearts. And finally, let your voice join the chorus below. Comment what stirred you, what healed you, what you've overcome. Your words might be the torch that lights another's path. Together, we are not just readers, we are witnesses. The story continues, and heaven still counts on you.